going on, everybody? You are live with Osiris. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. The world is filled with storytellers, and I, along with my guests, are here today in the Author's Lounge to help educate and inspire the young generation of writers and creators. Now, my guests are professionals in publishing, writers from a wide range of formats, and successful entertainers. They will provide beneficial advice on what to do and what not to do on your path to success. So, without further ado, I'll present to you our next guest. Let's go. Our guest today is also an author, but furthermore, he is a podcast host of the Publishing Performance. The Publishing Performance show provides a weekly source of inspiration, education, and actionable advice for writers at every stage of their self publishing career. Um, Whether they're just beginning or looking to elevate their career, his show is designed to help the self published author navigate the complexities of the self publishing world with confidence and with clarity. And I can say that I have also watched his show, and it is very much insightful. So, without further ado, here to talk about the AI and the Amazon ads, and I don't know, I'll let him explain it. I'll present to you Teddy Smith. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Osiris. I feel like I should give you a round of applause after that introduction.
No, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, as we mentioned, man, I know we're going to talk about the Amazon ads, but you're also an author, so you know the side, you know what it takes to do this. You're not just a person running a podcast platform that is on one end of the spectrum. You know both. So, before I even ask, those questions about it, what got you into the space as an author?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I actually started out not as an author. I didn't have like a passion for writing as a lot of you, or a lot of your audience has. I was never one of those people who thought, oh, when I grow up, I need to be a writer. I actually started off in business. I used to be a management consultant, and then I went into e-commerce. So I started a meditation brand, which sold mostly on Amazon, and that brand is still going. And when I was thinking about ways to market my products, and because my products sold mostly on Amazon, I wanted to think of new ways of getting leads to come to my website or to buy my products, or to, another way of also making an income source. So I wrote a couple of books about different types of meditation, non-fiction books like practical guides, and I wrote them under a pen name because I'm not like the face of my brand, so I didn't want to be like the face out there. I'm more interested in being the face of my personal brand rather than my meditation brand. So I wrote them under some pen names, and they sold really well. I initially intended for them to become like lead magnets essentially for my books, but actually the books themselves became their own business unit. And then I thought, wow, this is super interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus a bit more on this. And since then I've released more books. I've got 22 books live now. All self-published, written by myself, or some with a bit of help of AI as well, but all written mostly by myself. And I've got a couple of books under my own name, which are more about self-publishing and how to sell on Amazon. And I've got one children's book as well, which I wrote. The children's book I wrote and did the illustrations myself, but I did it really for fun. I wrote a book for my daughter and her cousin, and they're like the main characters in it. And they're like a giraffe and a frog, and they have adventures together. And I did all the drawings for them myself. Yeah.
Very nice. So how did they like it? How did they like the book?
Well, they're really small. They're like two. It was definitely a present for myself rather than for them.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But they will like it when they're older. I'm going to write some follow-ups to them. They have actually sold some copies. I've done zero marketing at all for them. I haven't done advertising or anything, and I've sold about 50 copies.
That's wow.
Yeah, all on Amazon, and they're all print on demand. And I didn't do any marketing at all, so that was quite cool. But it didn't really cover the costs. But I did it for fun, so you can check that out.
Yeah. That return on investment for children's books, especially with those illustrations, it could take some time.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, but I love that. I love the journey to even get to the point that you were at. So you have a background in business. It's just not surprising, just given the conversations that we've had. Like, oh, his business acumen is high. So
Yeah.
you certainly know what you're talking about. With that, what actually got you started with your own podcast?
Well, I think I've always had that wanting in my life to basically be a TV presenter. You know, if someone said, "Click your fingers and you can have your ideal job," what would it be? And I would love to be a TV presenter for. There's a show in the UK called Country File. It's a quite a nerdy like countryside program where people go
Yeah,
around like measuring cows and judging competitions, like weighing like acorns and things like that.
yeah.
So I would love to have a job like that, but realistically, that's probably quite competitive to get into. And so I thought, well, I love chatting to people, and I really enjoyed this sort of thing we're doing now, where I can chat to people, I can talk about business, I can talk about tactics. I really, really like understanding people's motivations and their life stories and things like that. And that's where I'd really like my podcast to go to eventually, is where I can speak to like bigger authors, still in self-publishing, but talk to them more about how they got successful, what tactics they used to get there. And so starting the podcast, what I've done is I started off relatively small, but still had some amazing guests. You know,
Yeah.
I had, well, Dale, for example, I had Dale L. Roberts on. You know, he's got like 100,000 YouTube followers, like millions of dollars of sales in books. I had Kevin J. Anderson on and Craig Martell, you know, big authors. So what I'm trying to do is speak to these people, understand like how they got to where they are, what marketing they use to become successful, and basically what helps them get from being new to being super successful. So when people ask me, what's your podcast about? I always say to them, well, the podcast is there to help authors to make more money. And that's kind of my aim of the show.
Yes, sir. Oh, that's awesome, man. And the vision of, just where you want to take your show. And I think that's actually very important for anybody. I don't think is a bad thing to even suggest, hey, I have authors now, but I'm looking to get even bigger authors in the
Mm.
future, because the more that you have and the bigger that their star power is, the more legitimacy it brings to your platform, and the more eyes that's on your product and the more
Yeah,
people that's willing to listen and know that, hey, he's bringing on these guests. Maybe J.K. Rowling will come on your show one day. I'm just saying,
that's
maybe,
my ultimate.
yeah, yeah. And, does she still live out there? I don't.
She's in Scotland. I'm actually in Portugal at the moment, but she's in Scotland.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
I've,
yeah, man.
the other day I interviewed the narrator of the Lee Child books. And so I was like,
Nice.
wow, he's a really big author. And if I could get him to come on the show, and I've kind of got like a soft lead to get in with him. So I'm hoping
Yeah,
that if I can push down that door once I've got a bit more success, then that would be my first maybe big author I can get on. So
yeah. I think that's a good move. It's all strategy too, and building a resume on who can I get on the show, not as much as how many people can I get on the show,
yeah,
because then it can just become more about quality over quantity. And I'm a firm believer in, it's got to be it's not that you're being picky, you're just being really selective as to, okay, who do I want on the show and what do I want them to represent. So man, I love the idea, and I appreciate you as well getting me on yours. I know we're doing mines ahead of time, but I really appreciate it in advance, you getting me on your platform and being able to share the space and to be able to provide my message to your audience. So thank you in advance.
yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Yes, sir. So let's go ahead and hop into it, to your niche and what we actually are wanting to speak about, which is the AI in the marketing and that space through Amazon. So the
Mm.
floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, perfect. So Amazon ads is quite a complicated topic, I think. You know, a lot of people don't understand it. You know, it's quite overwhelming, especially people who are writers and creatives. They're not used to looking at data in the same way as someone from like a business background is, and making decisions based on data. And so I think a lot of people find Amazon ads quite overwhelming, and maybe they don't really have time to be running their ads. What they'd much rather be doing is have time to write and to get their book sold. So it's one of the biggest issues that I have when people speak to me is with Amazon ads. They are worried about how their ads are performing, like whether their ads can be profitable, like how they can make their ads into like a lead magnet for maybe their wider business as well. And these are basically the questions I get asked all the time. And especially with Amazon ads, if you're not careful with them, they can get quite expensive if you're not careful. So with my background from e-commerce, which I mentioned at the beginning, I got really good at doing Amazon ads, and that was the main way I grew my business. I used Amazon ads to get my products in front of new customers so that they could start seeing how good quality they are, and then the brand built from there. And the same concepts really do apply to books, and that is the main point, in my opinion, for doing Amazon ads is to improve your organic rank. Now, a lot of people use Amazon ads as a way of just making sales, and they think, if I'm not doing any ads, then I won't make any sales. Now, that is partially true. You do need to be running ads in order to make your sales, especially if you're a brand new author. You're not going to get your book. No one's going to see your books if you don't do any ads, probably. But Amazon ads, the most important thing about them is trying to use them to build your organic rank. And that's why it's so important to choose the right keywords to target. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I see authors make when they're doing Amazon ads is they have loads and loads of keywords which they're trying to target, and they say, oh, my book is kind of about self-help, let's try and advertise for the keyword self-help. Now, that's a really bad tactic, because if your book is new and you're not a famous author and you haven't got any reviews and you target a keyword like self-help, immediately you're competing with books like Atomic Habits and Mel Robbins books and stuff like that. There's no way anyone's going to search self-help and buy a book by Teddy Smith when they see it next to a book by James Clear. It's just not going to happen. So that keyword research is really important. And what we're trying to do with our ads is to try and rank for these keywords organically, so that eventually people can buy our books without having to pay, without us having to pay for them to be shown. And that's why ads are so important.
That's incredible, man. Like to even think about it, like with keywords, and I've struggled with that in the past. I think I've gotten much better with it now, but it is tricky from the not just the keywords, but also the category. And finding is there what tactic do you use in order to really boost the success of the search rate for the book, and also to boost the success altogether?
To boost the search rank for the book. So for the first one, the main thing is being quite selective about the keywords you want to try and rank for. So if you're new to advertising, this is the best place to start. Pick a few keywords, like less than 5. It's going to be difficult for you to pick less than 5 because you're going to keep looking through these keywords and think, oh no, I should be ranking for that one too. But you've got to be quite selective with these keywords. You want to be choosing a few amounts of keywords, but maybe putting all of your spend into those keywords. Because if you can really start to rank for them, then that's when you're going to start seeing organic sales coming in as well. Now, the tool I use the most for doing that keyword research is probably Publisher Rocket. Publisher Rocket is really it's a great tool for people. I'm sure you've got a link that you can put into the show notes for this. But I mean, Publisher Rocket is a really great tool for doing keyword research. I interviewed Dave Chesson about the keyword research on my podcast a couple of months ago. So that's a good place to start if you want to hear about how Publisher Rocket works as well. But Publisher Rocket's a great tool. I also like using Google's Ahrefs, which is an SEO tool. Now it's quite expensive. If you're a new author, don't get Ahrefs, but because it's quite expensive. It's like $100 and something a month. But it's a great tool. It's more for SEO type people. So if you are just starting out, Publisher Rocket, best place to get those keywords. Now, once you've chosen the less than 5 keywords, you want to put those into quite a tight manual campaign where you are really just focusing on all your spends going on those like 5 keywords, because then you can start with a budget of $5 or $10 a day for a month, and all of your money should be going towards those keywords, and hopefully you'll be appearing near the top of the page all of the time for that without spending a crazy amount of budget.
Yeah. So, any advice on once they get there? Because I remember when I did Amazon ads and I was learning it, and I was confused of what I was staring at. This was like some years ago. But for an author who's just getting into it and they're trying to explore their ways of marketing and advertising, and they decide, what, Amazon ads is actually pretty affordable given not me, but the proverbial me. Given my budget, this seems logical. We can set it up from this way to this way in between this price range. But like the impressions and clicks, any advice on, and I know this is more specific to people and the customers and what they're clicking on and what they're searching on, but do you have any advice, or what advice do you have for those who see the impressions are relatively high, but the click through rate is not so much?
Yeah, so I mean, this is one of the reasons why we created our AI tool, which we'll come into in a bit. I mean, the reporting on Amazon is quite confusing, and there's a couple of terms you need to know. So what you've just mentioned, impressions, that's how many times people have seen your ad. Click-through rate, that's what percentage of people have then clicked through to your listing. And conversion, that's how many people have then, once they've got onto your listing, have ended up buying your book. Mm-hmm. Now, if you see some of the data, like for example, the example you just gave, you've got lots of impressions, but no people are clicking through to your ad. That means you've got the first step right. You've chosen the keywords, your book's appearing, and people are seeing it in the listing. So you've done that first bit right, you're bidding the right amount, and your book's appearing. If they're not then clicking onto your listing, that means there's probably a problem in two areas. Firstly, it could be with your cover. Now, your cover is really important. A lot of people say, oh, don't judge a book by its cover, but that's really, really bad advice, because everyone judges books by their cover, and I've got data to show you that people judge their book by their cover. So yeah, it's really bad advice. So if you're seeing that, it could be a problem with your front cover. It could also be a problem with your title or subtitle. Now, the issue with that is you can't change your title or subtitle. So if you're seeing impressions and the click-through rate's not very good, and you've changed your cover already, it could be a problem with the title, in which case it might be a time to unpublish the book and republish it with a new title. Now, that's quite an extreme measure, but that's the best thing about Amazon Ads, is it shows you actual data. Because if you're doing ads for, say, Facebook ads or something like that, you can see the data within the ads, but you can't see very easily whether it's converted into a sale or not, because Amazon doesn't share that data with Facebook. Amazon Ads really is the only way where you can see actual data of where click-through rate what the click-through rate is, what the conversion rate is, and how many sales you've made as a direct result of doing your keyword research and your ads.
You know that those are some great points, and one of the ones that one of the points you brought up, in which I wholeheartedly agree with, was the whole "don't judge a book by its cover." I think that is ridiculous for people to think that that's not a thing. No, that's it is a fact that you look at a book cover, and if it looks like it was chicken scratch or sketches and it's been put out there for purchase, is not likely to be bought unless, like we mentioned J.K. Rowling earlier, unless it's J.K. Rowling or somebody of that stature who you know who she is, you know what she represents.
Yeah.
So she can put out something like that, and it will convert to a significant payout. But you know, generally speaking,
even for her, like the cover makes a massive difference. There's a really good example I've used in like presentations. That obviously everyone knows The Hobbit. There's a really funny front cover on, if you Google it, just search funny Hobbit front cover, and it's like it's like the original French version of The Hobbit, and it's called Bilbo le Hobbit, the book. And it's got this like cartoony little hobbit with a tiny sword, and in the background there's like a cartoony looking dragon. And if you've ever read The Hobbit, it's quite dark. You know, that the front cover gives you no idea about exactly what's happening in the book. Yeah. And it makes me laugh, because if they'd made that the front cover originally, would we have ever had any success with the books in future? Like, I'd probably not.
Yeah, right. No, I agree. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does matter, and I think most people look at book covers as I really like the way that this looks, but they may not necessarily look at it from a marketing standpoint, or hey, like, you need to make sure that what you have on the front is quality, because this is what's going to sell people. Now, how often in your experience have you seen people turn the book over and use that as a means of purchasing? Granted, I know it's online and it's just sliding, and most people just scroll and they see the cover and then they click. But to your knowledge, how effective is like a blurb in the back of the book, assuming they click on it and then they slide and they swipe it to the left and they look on the back? How important do you think that plays into the favor of the author?
Yeah, I think less important online, because the information that you've got on the back of the book really should be reflected in your description on your listing. Because the back of the book, it's basically your sales page, but physical copy of it. So you should have that information should also be on your listing. It might not be exactly the same wording, it might be a slightly different format, but it should really be saying the same thing. It also shouldn't really affect your conversion rate or your click-through rate, because customers can't see the back of the book on the search page. So if I search for a keyword like self-help, the only thing I'm going to see is the front cover of Atomic Habits, Mel Robbins, whatever else, all those books that come up. So the front cover is absolutely vital for click-through rates. It's one of the main things that affects it. And then also the title as well. I don't know how much effect the back cover has online.
Right, and I don't think there is much, but I was wondering. I wonder if, because you do data analytics as well with that. So I'm thinking, okay, he may actually have some more knowledge on that I may not even be aware of. But that's actually good to know. A little different, and for those who are listening and are wondering, hey, is it just applicable to Amazon? I mean, you can go through other resources like Barnes and Noble Press, or maybe even like Drafted Digital, and have them take care of
Yeah.
your things. But like Amazon specifically, it's such a conglomerate when it comes to publishing that it's almost I would think it's in the author's favor to their best in their best interest to stick with Amazon. Maybe publish on the other ones as well. I would encourage spread yourself wide. However, if you are just starting out, I highly encourage sticking to Amazon and learning the basics and then branching out as well. So you had mentioned AI as a good tool that you've used. So please explain a bit about that as well. How has AI been effective in your strategy?
Yeah, so talking just about ads rather than about the writing and other parts for now. The reason we created our tool, which is called Publishing Performance, and I'm sure you've got a link to it in your show notes, but the Publishing Performance, we created it because we were good at ads and we understood how ads worked in products and books, but we noticed authors really were struggling with this a bit. And there's loads of tools for product sellers out there. So people who are selling physical products, there's loads and loads of help. They're quite expensive, the tools, but there's loads of help out there. Now, we wanted to create something that would help authors in exactly the same way. And so the way Publishing Performance works is essentially it's an AI Amazon account manager. Now, an account manager on Amazon is quite expensive. You're talking like $500 to $1,000 a month plus ad spend. So it really is quite a lot of money. And you don't necessarily know you're going to get the results. So what we're talking about doing with this is creating an AI-driven Amazon account manager. So the way it works is it plugs directly into your Amazon account, your KDP account, and it sets up your campaigns, chooses your keywords, it updates your keywords and optimizes them over time. And so over time, it will aim to bring down your ACOS, increase your sales, and it makes all those decisions like increasing bids, decreasing bids, choosing keywords, changing your campaigns, and all those things that you should be doing, but you probably aren't because, as mentioned before, you haven't got time, you find it overwhelming, you don't know what you're doing, and you're worried about making mistakes. And so that's how Publishing Performance works. So it uses AI not as a content writer, but as a decision maker. So the AI is actually thinking about your keywords and looking at the data, making decisions about that. So it's not like using a AI writing tool where it's doing the creative work for you, it's doing the analytical work for you.
For sure. And man, you're so full of knowledge. How do you even get to a space, right, where one, obviously you're making some good bread, making some good funds from what you do. But for somebody who is, let's say, hey, I see Teddy, he's an author, but he's running a really successful podcast platform. How does one get into that space, such as you?
Into podcasting or into the AI tools, do you mean?
Actually, that's actually good to distinguish the two. Into podcasting.
Podcasting, yeah. So if you're thinking about getting into podcasting, I would recommend being a guest first. It's much easier to be a guest on lots of podcasts than it is to host lots of podcasts. You'll know this. Like it looks easy, and our conversation has run really nicely, but that takes quite a lot of work to do the research, to find the guests, to do the vetting. I've had to interview people who I probably wouldn't usually interview because I want to, just build up that backlog. It takes a lot of work. So if you are thinking about getting into podcasting, I'd recommend just being a guest on as many places as possible. If you are thinking about being a guest on lots of podcasts, there's a few things you should do. Firstly, create a one-page sheet. You could do this it doesn't have to look too pretty. You can do it on Google Docs or something, or Canva. But include in there a picture of you, like what you've done, any awards you've won, and then include some topics of conversation that you would like to talk about. And underneath each one of those topics of conversation, talk about what makes it. Why are you the person who wants to talk, who should be talking about it? So, for example, on my one pager, I've got Amazon ads using AI, and then underneath I explain how you can create how you can create your Amazon ad campaigns using AI. Then I'll have something like Amazon ads. And then underneath that it says the basics of using Amazon ads for authors, for beginners. And then underneath I could have being a good podcast guest as an author, and then explaining why I can teach people how to be good podcast guests. Mm-hmm. So you've got to think, why would you be on the podcast? Now, if you're an author, it could just be you've created a fantasy book and you want to talk about how you give personality to trolls. Whatever you guys talk about, you guys are the creatives. You've got to kind of think about who the podcast is for. Now, my podcast is quite businessy, so even if we're talking about books, we're not going to be talking about how you give personalities to trolls. We're going to be talking about, as a fantasy writer, how you made your first sales. So the way you approach me and someone who hosts a fantasy podcast is going to be quite different. Yeah. But people everyone needs guests. It's hard to find guests. So, be a guest on some podcasts first before you decide to host your own, I would say.
I agree. Like, wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think even with me, when I got started, it was okay. I was featured on other people's like radio shows and podcasts and doing interviews in that regards, and kind of warming up to the idea. I know that it takes a ton of work to do this. Even what we're doing, like, these are years of experience. Like, you've been doing your thing for some time. I've been doing my thing for some time. So this seems effortless for people watching. Like, oh my God, it looks easy. I promise you, between the coordinating of time, which that's also important. I think people fail to realize, maybe not everyone, but many people fail to like realize the importance of coordinating time. There is a significant time change with us. I think right now, where you live at, what time is it? Like 2 something?
It's like 2:15, but it's like 5 in the morning for you, isn't it?
It was initially. I've been up since, man, like 4:45 a.m. my time. And so yeah, so right now it's like 6:13, but we've been talking since about like 5:30 a.m. my time and 1:30 p.m. your time. So that's part of the beast right there. But if you want it bad enough and you enjoy it, which this is awesome, man. Like, I'm not tired in the least, but I do think that does play into it. If you, depending on how wide you want to branch out, it's going to really, you're going to have to look at your sleep schedule and see what are you willing to do. So I'll just ask you a couple more questions, Teddy, and then I'll let you go on.
Yeah, of course.
Man.
I would say also it's way more fun being a guest than it is hosting, because it's nice to be asked questions and just speak for a bit. So, yeah, definitely be a guest on podcast before you think about hosting your own.
No, for sure, and you're sitting back just kind of in a relaxing stage, man. You're on a break right now, so
yeah.
So I'm sure it must be nice. I think when I spoke to you last week, I think I had caught you had just finished playing tennis. I'm like, man, it is raining here, and I'm watching this. Oh man, I'd love to be outside right now. I think it's looking a little bit nicer though. But I'm just being funny, man. But a couple more questions, and I'll let you get on out of here. So one of the biggest things I'm curious to know is, like, how lucrative of, given you've been doing this for a while, like from the business side and now running your show, but for people who are wanting to be able to say, can I make a living off of doing what he's doing? What advice can you give to those people to make any sort of money from this business?
So talking about the books only, really, because the software and stuff, that's a much bigger project. But talking about like the books alone, yeah, you can make a great living out of it. I think the key is to get better at the writing. I think, from speaking to different authors and writers on my podcast, the key thing that sets them apart is the ones that are successful are quite relentless in everything, and they're tracking everything. They're getting better at writing. They're publishing lots of books, really showing up every day. I spoke to a really great guy called Daniel Hurst. He's a British author who you should follow on Instagram. He's called Daniel Hurst, and he's a really, really cool guy. He's when you speak to him, he sounds like quite down. I think because he's from North England, which is quite like he's from the same places around where like Oasis have come from, and so the way they speak is a bit like a bit like that. But he's really enthusiastic about writing, and he just publishes like a book a month. He is always showing up for marketing events. He's always learning about new techniques. He's always learning about the networking. So I think if you want to make a living from this, either as a fiction or a non-fiction writer, you've got to be thinking about yourself as a book business, not just as a writer. If you want to be a writer, go and write for a newspaper or something like that. If you want to be an author, you're thinking about making a business, not just writing all day. So I think that's the main thing that I've seen that sets people apart who are successful and not successful. The other thing is, in the back behind your author business, it sometimes helps to have other things going on, so you don't take yourself out of the game. So, for example, if you're a writer, could you do some other work to help fund your lifestyle whilst you're doing it? Could you have a newsletter as well, which people can contact you on, because newsletters can be a way of making money? If you're a non-fiction writer, could you do consulting or something around your topic you're talking about to help keep stuff going? All that thinking about being a business and not just being a writer, I think, is the thing that I've seen that sets apart the best writers and the best authors from the ones that are just doing it for fun and just starting out.
Nah, that's solid advice. And one of the things we had mentioned Dale early in the episode. I remember when I was speaking to him, when I had him on my show. One of the things we talked about was branding. He wears that orange shirt, and that's a part of it. And I had brought up the idea like Mickey Mouse with his trademark look, or Super Mario with that trademark color, or Pikachu from Pokemon and that trademark. So, for you, what do you see how do you feel about the development of a brand, that author brand that some authors don't really view themselves as? You're very much in tune with what the business is about, but how important, like Daniel Hurst, it seems like he's an individual who just is relentless within. He comes at it with such aggression that it's hard to ignore. But how important is it to establish a brand as an author?
Yeah, I mean, I think branding in terms of like having a logo and color schemes and things like that, I think it is kind of important, but also kind of not important. I think it's important to be consistent across everything you do, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to make sure you're always turning up to an event wearing the same shirt or dressed the same. If you get a new haircut, I think that's cool. So I see what you're saying with the branding, but I think there's different types of branding. I think the most important part of your personal brand is just consistently showing up every day. If you're going to say you go and do a talk, if you do a talk that's a bit crappy, then those people that watched are going to associate you with doing a bit of a crappy talk. And that has a bigger impact on your personal brand as to whether you're wearing like a blue shirt or something that matched what you should be doing. So I think it's really tempting to think about these sexy things like logos and color schemes and stuff like that. But I think the most important thing is just making sure you're consistent across your platform. So, if you write in a quite casual way, then write across all of your platforms in a casual way. If you like speaking about particular topics, try and keep speaking about those topics to remain consistent, because people will associate you with how you are rather than what you look like. I mean, if you think about the biggest people in this industry, like Dale Roberts and Joanna Penn and people like that, what do you associate with Dale Roberts? I mean, firstly, like, he's really charismatic. That's one of the first things you associate with him. He writes books all about helping people to be authors. He's always has a YouTube video go out every single week that you notice that, like, he never misses a beat with that. And, those things are much more important than people noticing that his YouTube thumbnail is the same on every single picture. So I think about your own professional appearance as in like how you appear to other people rather than like how you physically look.
Yes, indeed. You got to sell yourself.
Yeah.
Well, not literally. Don't sell yourself. But um, let me see, because that may confuse some people of what I just said. Because I have an audience that ranges from 18 to 34, and sometimes I've seen it where it's 12 to 17. So for the 12 to 17 people, the ages 12 through 17, I don't literally mean sell yourself. What I am referencing is you just, be like Teddy was saying, just be consistent in who you are. Like me, I'm a chill guy. I'm a really respectful and positive, happy-go-lucky, energetic, bubbly person that enjoys helping people, and that's how I am in general. And it'll show up that way. But if I've all of a sudden, I'm on Teddy, and I was like, man, Teddy has a really big platform. This might be my opportunity to just not smile and take my glasses off and wear a hoodie and just look mean. And yeah, and so that is what's going to be represented on his podcast and his platform to his audience. And
Yeah.
so it will be a conflicting let's see, representation of what it actually is. So just be genuine, be authentic across the board.
Yeah.
And that is what's going to sell people. Just be you. And I think some people get caught up in the wind of wanting to be like other people, or they're seeing what the trend is, so they want to be trendy. And there's a reason why I don't go on like TikTok, for example, and do these outlandish things of behavior, because that's just not my style. It works for other people. That's just not who I am.
I
And so
couldn't
I
do
don't.
that.
Yeah, no, me neither. Me neither. Even when I was an actor, I'm like, dude, there's certain things that I can do and certain things I will not, and that's just not me. But for the sake of what we're talking about, it just kind of goes with, you don't want to just do something just to do it, unless you are an entertainer and you do that all around. Don't just do it just because. And so I agree with you with that. So last question, Teddy, before I let you get out of here. So thank you for letting me keep you for almost 40 minutes. Is where can people find you, and how can they listen to your show?
Brilliant. Yeah, well, thank you. So if you want to get in touch with me personally, then teddyagsmith.com is my website, and that's where you can find a link to my podcast, which is called The Publishing Performance Show, and also a link to my newsletter, which I've just relaunched, and it goes out every single week, and we talk about things in the self-publishing world. So if you're interested in learning more about how to make more money from selling books, then follow along with my newsletter and podcast. And if you want to learn more about Amazon advertising and using AI to power your Amazon ads, then the website you're looking for is publishingperformance.com. And there's a link in the show notes with a special code, and that special code will give you your first month completely for free, so you can try it out. And if you don't like it, then you can leave it, no hard feelings. And I'm sure Osiris will put a link to that in the show notes.
Absolutely, I sure will. Yep, all the information he's providing you all, it will be linked in the description of this video.
Amazing.
Please, yes, sir. So please do me a favor and check out his information. His stuff is solid, and he's a really good guy. So hey, any closing remarks, sir, before I let you go?
No, thank you so much for having on. It's been great chat. I've really enjoyed being on the other side of the chair, other side of the table for a change. So it's been really cool. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, for sure, man. Yeah, and I'm looking forward. I can't wait, man. I can't wait to be on the opposite side too, and take a chill take a chill pill for myself.
Yeah,
Cool, man. Well, hey, on that note, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune in to today's episode. It's been a joy having Teddy Smith on. Don't forget to check out his links in the description of this episode. And you all take care, and I'll catch you next time.
bye.